Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's Stockwaves webinar. We wanted to start off today taking a look at the IPO pattern that we have recognized and see how that is progressing on some of the more recent beyond ridiculous IPOs. So first off, a review. I found this old file that I did, funny enough, on the ticker IPO back when I could measure price, and it was on a good part of the access. I haven't tracked the pattern. This wasn't actually the IPO. I just justified the chart there and scrolled it over to a blank screen. But one of the things that we noticed with what we called the CAB PIPO pattern, or the Cowabunga IPO post-IPO pattern, is that often, this isn't the most important part, but often once something hits an exchange, the IPO will get an initial price rise. And sometimes that will last a few days, a few weeks, even sometimes a few months. But once that finishes, what we've noticed is that most of the time that is some fifth wave completing in some larger pattern. And so after that completes, then the normal part of the pattern takes over, which is a large ABC consolidation that often takes price down to roughly 50% or more of where it initially came on the exchange. So here in our example, using IPO as a ticker, even though it's not the actual IPO, we have it where it came on the exchange right around $24, $23, had an initial rise up towards 26, and then it started to turn down. And so our initial expectation would be that this would trace out a very large ABC pattern, taking it down towards the 12 or 13 region. The other thing that's worth noticing is that after that initial move down that comes under that line where it started trading on the exchange, the B wave will sometimes come up either back over it or at least tease with that line a little bit before the C wave comes down. So that's the gist of the pattern. And now what we want to look at is going through and reviewing some of the more recent IPOs. And we'll start with probably one of the most overhyped and recent ones that has been soaring since its initial IPO. And we're zoomed in here. I'm going to go out to a 1 hour chart. But this is still holding support for its initial rise from where it came on the exchange, right around $45. So it did hit a high close to 96, 97. And what we think counts best is that this move here was just, could be the wave 2 here, but counts better as an expanded flat for a wave 2 in a possible ending diagonal that could take this all the way up well into the 100s, as long as it's going to hold support. So in this diagonal pattern, the fade that we had in the last couple of days should be the B wave inside that third. And then as long as it holds support for a fourth wave, which would still be in the 80s again, then it can get that fifth wave up towards 156, maybe even spiking through that. Once it loses support in this region, we can start to consider that some other pattern that is not visible from before here was completing, and the larger corrective retrace that we're going to be looking for from that pattern should start to unfold. So if we came on at 45, then our larger ABC, one of the challenges that Motive Wave has is as far as these new names that don't have a lot of history, is the way that, let's delete that and try again like this. And there's other color coding that I use, but I've been doing a lot of these in blue. So that, when you see a chart that has blue ABC label from where that chart first started, then it's a good bet that that one is a Cowabunga IPO pattern. So 45, we'll half that, and we'll take it down to about 22.5 would be our final target price. and maybe that ends up being in line with a larger corrective move that we're expecting in the market. But normally those fill out a pretty proportionate ABC. So since we have a possible price target, now if this ends up being the top here, it still looks pretty proportionate there, but maybe we'll move this guy over a little bit more towards the end of the year and give that a little bit higher up. So once we start to break support, we can adjust these, but until then, we're looking for this to try and hold the 70s and push higher in that initial rise that would have. Let's move on and take a look at Uber. Now, as we mentioned, the initial rise is not always the most important part of the pattern, and some things start to fall right out of the gate. It's possible because this came on the exchange right around 41, it hit a low of only about 36 so far. This could have been just an initial gyration, and it still is going to try and get that initial 5 waves up to complete some degree 5th wave. So if this is going to start that extension, then we would want to see it hold support somewhere around here, and we'll probably give this, yeah, that's probably a good degree. And so based on that potential, if it's going to hold support in the 38 region, then this can get another extension heading up towards the 50s over the next few months maybe. But once that starts to break down or it fails to hold support at the 38, then again, we're going to be targeting probably about 20.5 roughly. And if that was the top, I'm going to make this green since we have a possible top in place. And sometimes I just let motive wave figure out the degrees for me. Other times I force it into the timing that we normally look for. You know, with the overall market being set up to start a larger ABC move down, if the move into the more recent high was an extension of that primary wave 3, then a lot of these newer IPOs getting a big ABC down into somewhere in 2020 seems to make a lot of sense. That could probably trickle down a lot lower. Let's move on to Lyft. I updated this chart earlier today in the normal stock waves room. It looked like we had a good B wave here, but this is starting to bounce more than it should as a little 4th wave, and this seems kind of large to be a 1-2 of a bigger C wave from here. So I'm thinking that this might be 5 waves down as the A wave, or an AB and just an extended 5th of that C wave for the A. But if it is 5 waves down, then hitting the 59 level for a 38.2% retrace as an A, B, and a C wave could certainly imply that this is in a bigger zigzag and about to drop towards the 32 region next. With this coming in at just about 90, that would certainly potentially complete the entire pattern. But with more weakness in the market, sometimes we see another even bigger B wave and a C wave down, or these just kind of continue to trickle lower, unless every once in a while we get a very clean C wave completing and we get an impulsive start off of that low once they've completed the pattern. A couple of other recent ones that caught my eye, I wanted to pull up PD. PD has a very, very nice clean 5 waves up from where it started off on the exchange at about 35.50. So if that is completed, the first signs of a more serious drop starting would probably be a break of about the 44 region. Could get another bounce from there and then come down for an ABC of this A wave and fill out a larger move coming down under the 20 level. Next one is TW. For some reason, these got pushed all the way out to a weekly chart. This is one that may not have finished its rise yet. It could be a very similar pattern to Beyond, with this being an ABC structure inside that third of an ending diagonal before that starts the big move down. So again, if that came on right around 34, then we'd be looking for the larger ABC down towards the 17 region. And in the ideal structure, can certainly end up getting a little bit less than that or even a bit more, but that would be what we would want to look for in an ideal world. Something akin to that. Oops. Now let's move on to ZM. Not my initials, just another recent IPO ticker. Here's one. If we zoom in on the initial rise, this can be a third and trying to hold support for a fourth wave here, and can be set up to get another push up towards 100 before that starts the fade. And then if this is where it started trading on the exchange, right around 65.50, then a drop down into the 30s seems very likely once this completes. And the last one I wanted to look at was pins. Here's another one that has that initial rise. Started trading on the exchange right around 23. This can be completing the first ABC. It's possible that this tries to stretch more. We don't have a clear 5 waves yet, so if this is an A and a B wave, this could be 1, 2, 3, and it needs a 4, 5 of the C wave before that completes. And then we would expect another B wave bounce and then a C wave lower. And then all of that still likely in the larger parentheses A wave before that gets another B wave bounce and then a C wave down into that longer term low. And again, came on at 23, so looking for a price down in the low teens seems very likely. All right, we'll go ahead and stop there and switch it over to Garrett to do some requests, and see you guys later.